Okay. Yep. I'm going to record. I will record the session. Okay. Let me see if there's anyone else. Okay. So everyone, if you could turn on your screens, please, that would be great. This is ACE, your virtual interview. And I promise if you have a virtual interview, you cannot do it without being in front of a screen. So if you can please turn your screens on, that would be great. Okay, if you could do that, that would be wonderful. Okay. All right, so really great to see all of you here today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking some time to be with us tonight. So I think most of you know me, but I'm Mindy Agan, and I'm the Assistant Director for Career Planning and Placement here. And this program is called ACE, your virtual interview. And so because virtual interviews are really a thing, and pretty pervasive in terms of interview and interview protocol, this workshop really proves, I've run it for a couple of different years, and it's students always find it super helpful. So that being said, our presenter tonight is Jerri Harris, who's class of '81, and she has been in HR for well over 30 years. And I'm so really thrilled that she's willing to give her time to talk to all of us tonight. I think, she has a lot of great advice to share. You will absolutely be able to put questions in the chat. In fact, if you want to go on and say hi in the chat and introduce yourself, that would also be wonderful. Let me see, somebody else is coming in. That would be terrific as well. And so, Jerri, before why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And as you're introducing yourself, if you could also answer kind of one question for me. I think it's always interesting for students to hear kind of what was one activity that you or class that you took or something that you did in college that gave you a transferable skill that you still use today. That's one. And number two, how did you were a psych major here. How did you end up in HR?
Yes. So, okay.
Go ahead. Take it away.
So hello, everybody. First of all, thanks so much for having me. Can I still say oh woo? Is that still a thing? Oh woo?
That's a thing.
Okay. All right. Oh woo. So like I say, happy to be here. So I am a human resource professional. I've been in human resources for, as Mindy said, more than 30 years. I was a psychology major while at Ohio Wesleyan and a minor in Black World Studies. And what I knew when I graduated from college was that I wanted to do something with people. While I was at Wesleyan, I was in a couple student organizations. I was a member of SUBA, the Student Union on Black Awareness. I also was a member of WCSA. And I think what I got from that was the ability to collaborate. In WCSA, with it being the representatives from all the different organizations, we certainly had to collaborate and come up with ideas and programs, but we had to work together as a team. We had to share and collaborate. And that is something that has certainly carried me throughout all of my career. And the other thing I would say is probably leadership. By taking on leadership roles in the university, I got comfortable with one, whether it was presenting or leading or delegating. So those definitely are transferable skills that you all are doing now by being a part of your organizations that will certainly serve you well in your career. How I ended up in human resources when I was out looking for a job. My first job was not in human resources. I kind of had a job. First job I was able to get was as a clerk. And I was like, this isn't exactly what I had in mind. But I knew I liked working with people. And where I worked was in a corporate America, corporate setting. And so I said, the people plus the corporate America in business is human resources. So that's how I worked my way to human resources. And my very first job was actually as a recruiter. So that's how I started my career as a recruiter.
Well, thank you for that. Also, I have to just ask before we get started, whoever KE725 is, you just need to put in the chat who you are so I can mark you off. I would appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. And, feel free, as I said, again, to put questions in the chat. And I'll be happy to ask them along the way. Also, Jerry was nicely agreed to kind of stay here a little bit beyond 7:45 in case some of you would like to talk to her and ask her questions you're not comfortable, putting in the chat. That being said, take it away, Jerri.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Ace Your Virtual Interview. All right, so let's jump into it. All right, so just kind of told you who I was. What my current role is I am the Career Development Manager at Leidos. And what my job is I lead and design all the career development and mentoring activities for my company. And that includes an annual career month. September was Career Month, where we had workshops and events, guest speakers for the whole month of September. So big focus on career development, but also have done other things like employee engagement, leadership development, team development. As I mentioned, my first job was as a recruiter. I've done training, so I've had a great career in human resources. In addition to my undergraduate degree from Ohio Wesleyan, I also have my MBA in human resources and member of the SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, and also the Career Development Association. So that's kind of the snapshot of me, but let's jump into this. So what we want to talk about is an overview about the virtual interview process, what the goal of this session is. Want to give you what I think are some winning strategies that will help you ace your virtual interviews, and then close with a foundation for career success. So the overview of this is, and the big idea is that virtual interviews are just the norm now. Rarely are there the in-person kind of interviews. I think post-COVID, when everything went virtual, a lot of organizations started doing virtual interviews, but then that's just stuck, Also, it's stuck because as you find there are remote opportunities where people work from home, then you can hire people from anywhere. So it's hard to bring people to one or two locations for in-person interviews. So the virtual interview is a way really to kind of open up the applicant pool so that you can hire people from all over the world. So even though the format might be different, there's still the same things that you need to do to be successful. And that's what we're going to talk about: prepare, practice, and also present confidently. Okay. So what my goal is today is to help strengthen your interview skills and also boost your confidence so you can ace your interview. I want to tell you a story. When I first graduated from Wesleyan and I started into the job hunting process, I probably was not as prepared as I know you all are going to be, because perhaps I didn't go take advantage of the career services kinds of offerings that were out there. So I very clearly remember in an interview that I had, the recruiter asked me, how do your skills align with the position that we're offering? And I had no answer because I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't prepared to answer that question. And then another question that I was asked was, why do you think I should hire you for this position? You all will not believe what I said. I said, because I'm a good person. So needless to say, I did not get that job or the next couple ones that I had interviewed for because I was not prepared. So I applaud you all for being here, because this indicates to me that you want to be prepared to ace those interviews. And so hopefully I'll be able to help you with that. So why the interview? The first thing I say about an interview, it's a mutual process. Often, the candidates, we are concerned about how we can impress the interviewer, but you also get the opportunity to interview them to find out if this is going to be the place that you want to work that is good for you. But what the interview does, it allows you to showcase your strengths. This is your brag moment, right? This is your opportunity to tell the kinds of things that you've done, the skills, experience that you have, and demonstrate that for the recruiter. It's also that opportunity for you to learn about the company through the questions that you ask, through the research that you've done. So again, if this is the company that matches with what you're interested in doing, what you care about, what you think would be a good fit for you. That's how you're assessing the fit. And then it also is an opportunity for you to build relationships. And relationships are another thing that's just so key in the hiring process, in the work process, this is an opportunity for you to do that. Okay. So there are 3 winning strategies that I want to share with you that I think can help you. One is to prepare, the second is practice, and the third one is to present confidently. I can't see everybody. Can you all give me some thumbs up, something? Let me know you're with me. Yes, I see 1, 2. Yes. Okay. All right. Mindy, everybody, are they giving me thumbs up and telling me yes? Okay. All right. I need to know you all are with me. All right. So let's talk about the first one. That is prepare. So the first thing is understanding this new AI process. That was something that Mindy asked me to speak to. AI is everywhere, right? It's everywhere. It's in everything. And I think what's important is that the more we understand the process, the more comfortable you can be. So in the hiring process, a lot of companies, including my company, we use AI as a pre-screen. There can be so many applicants for one job that there has to be a way that the organization can kind of narrow that down, can kind of come up with a smaller pool of who's going to get to talk to the human, right? So there are 3 ways in particular that they do that. One is the chatbot interview, and that is where you are answering short questions, preset questions, and you really are texting your responses. And those are done, like I say, so they can assess some basic qualification. It might even be questions like, are you over 18? Are you eligible to work in the United States? Do you have so many credit hours? If you're a early career professional, do you have a degree? So that's the chat bot where you are texting your responses. The second one is a video screen. And this is where, again, with those preset questions, you have to record yourself. You're making a video, then you upload that to the site. And then the AI tools in the background, they are reviewing that video and they're listening and reviewing for tone, for clarity, for expression, for the responses that you have to those preset questions. And then the final one, which I think is the one that kind of feels the strangest, is when you actually are talking to a digital assistant. And that's where you get the call and the phone is asking you a question, and then you have to respond to that. So what it is, I think that throws people sometimes is, one, you're nervous because it's something, but how long do you have to do it? Can you re-record? So what's important is that you read the instructions, because most of the time it will tell you, here's how long you have, here's how long you have to prepare, here's how long you have to respond. And it will also tell you in the instructions whether you can re-record or resubmit your responses. So that's the key, is to make sure that you read the instructions. So even with this, you still have to do those same things. You still are going to have to prepare those answers to the questions, like to tell me about yourself and what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and give me a time when you did something. So this is just a different process, but it's the same preparation that you're going to have to do. With AI taking over all this technology, my tip for you is to just do what's being asked and don't use tools in real time. So I'll give you a story. And I mean, for example, if you're doing a video and it asks you a question, don't pick up your phone, even on the slide, and go to ChatGPT to put in the answer, because there is technology now that can help companies, recruiters, know whether people have done that kind of stuff. So one of the recruiters I talked to and told that I was doing this presentation, I was like, what are some of the things that have happened? And they said once when they were interviewing for an intern gave these beautiful answers, perfect answers, great answers. And so the hiring manager and the recruiter were talking about, okay, we should bring this person on board. We should hire this person. And the hiring manager kept shaking their head, said, something isn't right with this. His answers were just too great. How does he know all this when he's only a sophomore? Let's bring him in for an in-person interview. They brought the student in for an in-person interview, and he could not answer any of the questions because he had ChatGPT'd the answers in the course of the interview. So of course, no, he did not get that position. Another thing that they told me happened once was in one of these video screen interviews. The video screen interview went really well, made an offer to the person. The person that showed up was not the person that was on the video. So people do all kinds of crazy things. So just do what you know to do is right. Answer the questions, be you, show up as you, answer the questions. If you don't know an answer to a question, it's okay to say, I don't know that, or I haven't had that experience yet. But don't go, into all these other modes of doing things, because they'll figure it out and it won't work out in the end anyway. Okay. Was there a question, Mindy, about this? I saw something pop up.
Let me see. Somebody have a question about this?
It looked like there was a hand, something popped up on my screen.
Okay, I actually did have one question about this that I often get asked, so I'm wondering about your advice. And that is, how do students prep for like a higher view or a virtual interview? Because it's really hard when you're just talking, not only to the voice, but when you have to talk into a camera. And, sometimes you get a redo and sometimes you don't.
Correct.
How do you prep for that?
So one of the things two things. One is the practicing yourself by recording yourself and really timing yourself. You can use your phone to record yourself on a video and actually practice. You can practice, how long does it take me to answer these? I've got to answer these within, a minute. I would never say more than 2 minutes, but you can practice recording yourself and then you listen to that back to see how you do. The other thing is that there are interview AI simulators, and I am not that familiar with those. So you could actually go out and say, what are some reputable AI simulators for mock interviews? And like I said, there are several. I've never used those. I've used AI simulators. How I use them is we have career conversations and we have our managers and the employees talk about their career. And so we have a tool called AI Simulator Casey, where the manager can go in and practice that conversation, because the simulator will give them scenarios and then they'll put in their response, and the simulator will give them feedback about whether they thought that was good, what else they could change. So that's what a simulator is. And there are those that are available for mock interviews. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So let's go on to the next thing under prepare. So you got to test your technology, your camera, your microphone, your lighting, the audio, your internet connection. With everything being virtual, you've got to make sure that that's good. A key thing when you're doing your virtual interviews is eye contact. And what you do is you're looking at the camera, not the screen. So sometimes what I will do is take a Post-it note and put it on the back of your laptop right where the camera is, so that you're making sure that that's where you're looking, not here. So like right now I have my laptop here and I have a monitor here. If I'm looking here, then I'm not going to be looking at the camera. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So like I said, get a little sticky note. So align your Post-it to your webcam. If you need to use headphones or earbuds, you can do that if there's any distraction around you that you can't mute out. And then make sure that all of your devices are charged up. Get familiar with the different platforms. There's Zoom, there's Teams, there's Google Meet. So make sure when you have the virtual interview, ask the question, if they don't tell you, what platform it's going to be on, so that you are prepared. I remember the first call that I had with you, Mindy. I didn't have Google Meet, and it took me a minute to get connected. And I was like, oh my goodness, wait a minute, I'm going to be late for the meeting. So that's a reminder to myself. You got to get familiar with what the virtual platforms are. Okay. And then the final thing under prepare is to know the employer and know the role that you're applying for. So do the research on the organization, find out their mission, the culture, their values, anything in the headlines recently about that employer. That's going to help you have a better sense of what matters to the employee, and it helps you align and share information about how you are a good match for that company. And then definitely do your research with the job description. Note what the keywords are. And then here's where you can go in and you're matching, what are the skills and experience that I have? the first question that Mindy asked me about those transferable skills. This is where you're looking at that so that you can say, they're asking for teamwork in this job description. What experiences and skills do I have that match up with it? When have I demonstrated teamwork? What skills do I have that match? So that's a great way to prepare. Okay. Let's go on to practice. That's a key one. So sharpen your answers. So you know that the interviewer is going to ask you certain questions. So the key thing to do is to practice those. So the first one is to rehearse responses to common questions. There's always going to be the question about, tell me about yourself. And I'm going to show you a way to do that. The other one is the behavioral-based interview questions, which are the tell me about a time when you. Behavioral-based questions are those things that where the interviewer wants to know, what have you done in the past? Because that gives them an indication of what you might do in the future. So the STAR model is excellent for that. It's situation, task, action, and result. And we'll walk through one of those as well. So here is the third bullet is practice with a human, right? Everything is virtual, but I still want you to do some practicing with a human. You know, it can be your roommate, it can be someone in your dorm, it can be a professor, someone that can give you some feedback around your interview. And then the other one that we just mentioned was to record yourself so that you can refine your delivery. And then the leverage AI tools, that's what I mean with the simulator ideas, that you can do simulations to help you practice, okay? And the prompts that you put in are important. So if you, for example, want to practice not using fillers, the ums and the likes and the okays, then you can ask the prompt to pay attention to that, okay? If you want to refine answers around certain things, you ask the prompt that, and that can help. So experiment a little bit with those AI simulator tools, but don't overwhelm yourself, okay? All right, so let's talk about these questions. Common versus behavioral questions. The traditional questions, those are the general broad questions that are straightforward. That's your tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Why are you the right person that we should hire for the job? And then the behavioral questions are those specific ones based on past. Tell me about a time you worked on a team. Describe a situation when you faced a challenge or a conflict and how you handled it. That's always a key hook to that question is you might have had a challenge, but how did you handle it? That's what they're listening for. When you had to meet a tight deadline or manage multiple priorities, how did you get things done? So I always think about what was the outcome of that. That's that result in the STAR. So here's a framework that I think works easily and nicely for those common questions. So the tell me about yourself, for example, think about the position. Who are you and what's your current status? You always, I'm a junior at Ohio Wesleyan majoring in this, or I'm a recent graduate. Who are you, right? Personality, this is one that I think is really important. Let the recruiter know who you are. They're interviewing multiple candidates and they need to see what your passion is, what motivates you, who you are, what you're excited about. Okay? Performance is the opportunity for you to highlight what your achievements have been that demonstrate the skills that connect with the job. So here's where, whether it's been in an internship, a project, whether it's been in one of the student organizations that you've been in, this is your opportunity to connect what you've done. And then the final P is potential. This is what you're hoping to happen, what you're hoping to contribute, why kind of you are that person for that opportunity. So let's do an example of that. So here's a tell me about yourself. So I'm a junior accounting major at Ohio Wesleyan University with a strong interest in auditing and financial analysis. That's your position. I'm detail oriented, dependable, and I enjoy solving problems through numbers. That's your personality. You're telling who you are, what you enjoy. During my internship at a CPA firm, I helped prepare financial statements and improve reconciliation process that saved time. That's your performance. And then the final one, I'm excited about this opportunity because it allows me to apply my skills while growing towards my goal to become a CPA. That's the potential. What do you think of that? Is that a rubric you could use? Am I getting yeses or nos?
Need like a
Okay.
few thumbs.
Okay, some thumbs. Okay.
Nod and a few thumbs. Okay.
Okay. All right.
We
Perfect.
got a lot of thumbs. Thank you.
All right, good. So that's your rubric for those common kinds of questions. So let's go on to now the STAR. This is the behavioral based, the tell me about a time when. So situation is you set the context and you give the details in your example. Here's what happened. Here's what the situation was. The task is you describe your role and the task you needed to accomplish. Here's one that I think is really important. What was your part? A lot of times when you work on a team, what I hear people saying is that we had to do this, we had to do this, we did this, we did this. Again, remember, this is your time to shine. So you have to tell what your role was. What did I do in this particular situation? Okay, that's part of the action. And then you want to share the outcome. The result is always key. That's the so what. You did all these things, but what difference did it make? You want to tell the result. So let's look at an example. Situation. During my junior year, I worked on a 4-person group project in my accounting class to prepare a financial analysis presentation for a local business. That's the situation. The task. My role was to organize the data and ensure our report was accurate and clearly presented. Okay, action. I scheduled team check-ins, verified data consistency, and helped a teammate who was struggling with Excel formulas. We completed the project 2 days early, received an A, and the professor used our report as an example for future classes. So you've got the situation, task, action, and result. Okay. So
Jerri,
that's what I want.
No,
Go
I
ahead,
just want to make one comment is that, I agree with you because oftentimes people talk in we's, like we did this and we did that. And the thing is, an employer is not hiring a we.
Correct.
They're hiring an I. But if you
Right.
notice at the end in the result, it's okay then to say, but because of, as a result of my, my contribution, we completed the project in 2
Yes.
days or 2 days early. Like it's okay to bring back in the we, but you
Right.
got to separate out the I because they want to see kind of where you were.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I like that. The employer's not hiring the we, the employer's hiring the I. Okay. I love the STAR method, and I can tell you throughout my career, when I apply for jobs and have interviewed, I always use a STAR model. So if you can keep that STAR in mind, that's going to serve you a lot throughout your career. Okay. All right. So last of the winning strategies is to present confidently. Okay. So the first one is set the scene. You have to choose a quiet, well-lit space free from distractions and clutter. Okay. That's really important where you have the interview. You're in a dorm. Hopefully there's a study room you can go to. Maybe there's a conference room or someplace, but you want to make sure that there's not a lot going on. You can't do it, in the cafeteria. I've had people and we've had people call in and they're in their car. That's not an ideal place to have your interview. So you've got to find a good spot to have the interview. Okay. Clutter, you got to make sure that there's not a lot going on. You don't have any distractions. Silence your phone. Everybody has their phone all the time, but you've got to make sure that that's on silent. I'm working with this student that goes to college in Massachusetts. And for our last 2 calls, his phone went off during our session.
Oh, dear.
I'm just like, oh my goodness, right? And we actually were preparing for an interview. I said, can you please make sure that you silence your phone? You've got to make sure that that phone is silent. And then you've also got to make sure that you have a clean virtual background. I actually was trying today to do a white background and I couldn't get that together. So I did the blurred background. So that's something you can work on ahead of time, is to make sure you have a good background. Dress appropriately, top to bottom. A lot of times people think, okay, just let me do top up and that's fine. But I say do the whole thing, top to bottom. Who can tell me, either you can come off mute or in the chat, what's dress appropriately mean? What's appropriate?
At the very least, business casual.
Go ahead. Can you say it louder?
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. At the very least, business casual.
Okay. And what's business casual?
That would mean, let's say, for example, I'm just wearing like a plain, very plain, not like super formal, but also not super casual sweater, let's say.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
a dress shirt if you have one.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
those are just
Okay.
some like shirt examples, but
Okay, I'll take that. I think when we say appropriate, that's I like the business casual, maybe a little bit plus. But also what I think is important is if you can find out what the culture of the company is, that's also a clue of what's appropriate. If everybody in the company that you've talked to or you found out about wears a suit, then you've got to get a suit. Then you've got to put on a jacket. But at minimum, I think if you can wear a collared shirt, solid colored, not too much going on, I think that's going to be fine as well. But if you can find out the culture, if you're going to interview at Google, that's a different kind of environment from, you know, a Lidos, right? But you want to dress one step above what you think is the average. Okay. All right, and then join the call at least 5 minutes early so that you can make sure everything is working. You can make sure everything is working. So that's part of setting the scene. Okay. All right. Communicate with confidence. What I want you to do is speak clearly, confidently, at a steady pace. One of the things I have to always still work on is that I'm not talking too fast. Sometimes when I get excited, I'm talking too fast. So you want to practice steadying your pace so that you're taking a breath in between what you're saying. You can even pause, when you're being asked questions so that you have a moment to kind of collect your thoughts and you're not going too fast. In that virtual kind of setting, you want to make sure that you demonstrate your listening. Again, it's hard when all it is the screen or, there's not as much interaction. But you can demonstrate that with some nonverbal cues. You can nod to like you're following along. You're making sure you're maintaining that eye contact. You want to make sure that you have some open body language, that you're not, sitting too stiff and too, but that you are open and receptive. Okay. And that you are sitting up, that you are in the camera, not too far back, but that you're sitting up to show, that you are paying attention, you are listening. I think the natural gestures are fine. I'm a person that talks with my hands. And so I think that's okay, if provided I'm not going too crazy, right? But I am, when I talk, I use my hands. If you have other natural gestures, I think that's okay. And then finally, yes.
No, just my question is, how do you think that, what advice would you give to like really convey energy across a screen? Because I think that's harder than being in a room with somebody.
Right. I think it is through some of those gestures and cues. Like I think I'm excited about doing this workshop. So hopefully you're seeing some of my energy just in the way that I'm talking, how I'm using my hands, hopefully I'm smiling, those are the kinds of things that in a virtual setting help convey. Back to the young man I was talking to last night. He is well prepared with his stars and the star model and all, but he never smiled the whole time. And so you got to show that passion. You got to show, that you're interested. And that will come through your gestures and through, like I said, the verbal things. When you show that engagement, when you say, tell me again about that, or can you say that again? That interest is showing some energy. Does that help? Okay. All right. So be genuine. Enthusiasm and authenticity go a long way. When you reach a certain point in the interview, or even if you get invited to an interview, that means the interviewer knows some basic things about you. They know where you go to school. They know probably what kind of grade point average you have because you've made it through that screening. So then it comes down to who you are, and that's why your personality is so important. That's why being authentic, goes a long way. The interviewers will remember that rather than just the straight, okay, you have the grades, you have this, this, this. They want to know who you are. And so let that shine. Be honest. Don't embellish what your skills and experience are because it'll come out in the end and that won't work well. So be honest, don't embellish, don't make up stuff. But again, be honest and authentic. And then always, and I'm sure you've heard this before, make sure that you have some thoughtful questions that you want to ask during the interview. As I said at the beginning, this is a two-way kind of opportunity. And so you should always have, I would have at least 5 questions prepared. And in the course of that interview, they probably will answer at least 2, maybe 3, but then you'll have a couple more. Don't end when they say, do you have any questions for me? And you say, no, I don't. Right. So come up with about 5. And then, like I said, chances are they will answer a few of those within the course of what they're sharing with you. But then you will have additional questions that you can ask. Okay.
Oh,
all right. So,
Jerri?
Yes.
I'm sorry. There was a question that was shared with me. What does it say to an interviewer if they say to you, do you have any questions? And you say, no, I think you've answered them all. What does that mean to them?
So I just think that means, I think it kind of comes off, there's nothing else. I've answered everything. And so even if the question is, what's the next step of the hiring process, or when I can expect to hear from you, or, what's an average day in an intern's, what's an average day for an intern, or what have been some of the things that have been successful for prior interns? I think there always can be 1 or 2 questions that you can ask. What's the culture of the team that I'm going to be working with? Or what's the team that would be assigned to? What are they currently working on? What's the challenge that they're trying to face? I think there always can be 2 or 3 questions that you can ask. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. All right. So after the interview, thank you notes still go a long, long way. We've gotten away from the handwritten notes, which I still love, but in this day and time, you still want to send an email to thank the recruiter, to thank the hiring manager. It's your opportunity to show that you appreciate them taking the time to talk to you. If there are any outstanding questions that you have for them, you could reiterate that in that email, and just make sure you proofread the email. And don't just use one canned. If you're interviewing with a company and you have multiple interviews with the same company, don't send the same email. Sometimes they'll share, oh, hey, I heard from Mary, she said, so craft it to what it was, the experience that you had and for that job. And then finally, reflect on what went well in that interview and what you want to improve on next time. Just take a few minutes to say, oh, I think I really did well on this and this and this. Next time I want to refine my answer on 1 or 2 things. Okay. So those are the big things. The other thing I would just say before I do one other thing is I want you all to prepare, practice, present, but I also want you to be natural. I don't want you to be so scripted that it's coming out just one stream of something that you've memorized. You're practicing so that you know what you want to say, but you don't want to just be scripted where it's one straight script that you are, responding to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Am I getting some yeses, nos? Okay. Alexis, I see you. You're the one I see. And so you got me on the thumbs up all the time. Perfect. I appreciate that. You're the one I can see. Okay. So yeah, be natural.
We got a lot of thumbs, so that's
Okay.
good.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing when I'm done so I can see everybody else when we do questions. So last thing I want to share is a foundation for career success. So one of the things I do at work with our interns is I'm a part of the intern welcome team. And so every week when we have interns that come in, you know, different groups will come in and talk to the interns about what they do and, you know, welcoming them. And my piece that I always talk about is career development. And here's some of the things that I share with them that I hope will be helpful for you all. So one is work hard and take your role seriously. Internship, first role, you got to go in, you got to work hard, you got to take that seriously. In that opportunity, watch what's going on, learn, listen, be a sponge, take in as much information as you can. Keep a positive attitude. It seems strange to say that, but sometimes people come to work and they don't have a positive attitude, and that's always very noticeable. So you want to make sure that you keep a positive attitude. Demonstrate your professionalism. That's in your behavior, that's in your dress, that's in your language. That is very important in a work environment. Keep track of your work and your accomplishments for resume building. You know, whatever assignment you have, whatever project you've worked on, just, you know, keep a notebook, keep a journal. So when you're going to update your resume, you have solid things that you can add to that that are accomplishment based. Stay connected to your colleagues, right? So LinkedIn is the way to go these days. Make sure that with your supervisor or other people that you worked on, that you connect with them, because that could lead to future opportunities if you are applying for another position or whoever's in their network. You're connected with them after you've left for your internship or even just while you're in your role. And then finally, I'm big on reflecting. Reflect on your experience after each internship or job assignment. That helps you know, here's what I liked about this internship. Here's what I didn't like about this internship. Next time, I think I'd like to do this rather than this. So that reflection is just a time to kind of help you assess and gives you good data for going forward. Okay. All right. So I want you to keep calm and ace your interview. And now I'm going to take questions. So I'm going to stop sharing here and see if I can now see folks. Oh, I think I can. Let me see if I can see everybody. Oh, there you all are. Okay. All right. So let's do questions. What questions do you have? I still can't see chat, so you got to talk to me.
I have a question.
Okay.
So if you're being asked a question and they want you to kind of recite from a past experience that you've had,
Mm-hmm.
how late can you go to a past experience? Like, does it have to be something that just like if you want to go to a past experience to talk about
Mm-hmm.
it, like how you've grown or whatever, like does it have to be super recent or can it be like from any point in your life?
Okay, so let's not do any point in your life. Okay, let's not go back so far. But I would say within the past couple of years, if you are like a freshman, sophomore, I think even what maybe an experience from high school would be okay. If you're a junior, senior, something from freshman, sophomore year. So I would say a couple years is the example that the time frame that I would say.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay.
I would also say I would agree with that, Athena. And I think what you don't want to do is even if you're in college, high school is okay if you're a freshman, sophomore. You really don't want to go back to middle school.
Right. Right.
Like, except if it's something like super exceptional, like you've gone beyond that, you
Right.
know?
Mhm. Yeah. What other questions? Alexis, I was waiting for you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna go, like, I know you mentioned keeping a nice quiet environment without distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking to me? No. Sorry. It's I'm gonna say it's really awkward to sometimes go for a virtual interview when you have pets around.
Yes.
They're never quiet. Is there any, like, anywhere or any just time would you say you would recommend to try to get around that sort of issue?
So is there a separate room where the pet could be? Is that an option? Like if you're like I'm in my office right now, like if I were to close my door or someone could keep the pet for the 30 minutes or so that you're having the interview. I think that's one of those things that could be a distraction, So if you can minimize that, that really will serve you well.
I
What kind of
try.
options might you have for the pet?
Well, I guess the main issue is just the dog is loud. No matter where I have her, the dog is loud.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I tend to have someone watching over the dog, keeping her nice and quiet, that sort of thing. And I tend to be in a separate room from everyone else with the door shut.
Excuse me.
The other thing you can also do, Alexis, and this is true for any student, if you feel like you don't have the right space to have an interview, you can always come over to Career Services and say, is there an interview room that I could use for this 30 minutes or hour, right? We've done that before, in fact. As long as we know ahead of time, we can usually help you find either something in our office or another space. We can do that.
I'm sorry, I got a tickle in my throat now. That's what I was gonna say is find someplace else to go if you can. Okay. Other questions? What are you all nervous about? What makes you most nervous about the interviews?
Okay, I have something.
Okay.
I guess like them asking a question that I'm not prepared for. Like even
Mhm.
if you've practiced a lot, like how do you go about answering a question that you might not have really thought about?
So I think that here's what I would say. I think that you can't know every question to your point that they're going to ask you. Think about what are your 3 or 4 kind of stories, because those can be used in multiple situations. So, the tell me about a time when you did something could, be an example about resilience, or you initiated something, or something that you overcame. So you can take that same story to pivot to the question that you might not have prepared about, but you know that those 3 or 4 stories have multiple elements in them that you could use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, you don't have to think of, okay, here's my example about teamwork. Here's my example about, innovation. Here's my answer. Think about what's been successful things that you've accomplished, because there are multiple things in that's the one you leverage, that thing that you're being asked about. Yeah, you can't prepare for every question you don't know. And then you also ultimately can say, I'm not sure, I have to think about that. You don't want to do that more than once or so, but think broadly that those 3 or 4 good solid stories you have can be used for multiple questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Everybody else is ready to ace the interviews?
Does anyone else have any other questions before we say thank you to Jerri? This recording, by the way, I will also send you her PowerPoint, which I have. She was kind enough to share it with us. And I think you gave me a takeaway
Yes, there's also a handout, a checklist, and it goes, it's the three things, the prepare, the practice, the present, and then there's two additional examples of questions. So one is, what are your strengths and weaknesses in that 4P? And then the other one is a star one. Give me an example of a time when you had to meet a tight deadline or multiple priorities. So you have that as a takeaway as well.
Right. So I will send that out tonight after we get off the call. But I want to thank you all for joining us. We want to say thank you to Jerri. So, you can put a symbol applause, you can have things going up the screen, but thank you. So we really, really appreciate it. It's super insightful. I will also, tomorrow when I get into work, I will also share this with you just so you can have it to refer back to. Jerri, is it okay if students contact you if they have any questions?
Yes, it is. If you have questions, feel free. Mindy, you have my information. I'm also an alumni coach, so feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk and share what I can that could be helpful for you.
All right. Well, that's a great offer for people to take advantage of, because as you can see and hear, Jerri's done a lot, and she's got a lot of really great insights. So thank you all very much, Jerri. Thank you. If you want to hang out for a minute, we'll see if there's anyone else that wants to ask a question.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
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 Yep. Wanted to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is time to get dinner.
Do you have a question, or are you good? Do you want to ask Jerri a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Have a nice night. Thank you. Thank you, Jerri. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Good. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, we got a lot of, we don't always get a lot of, but we got a lot of, thumbs up and.
Okay.
And I think, students were pretty attentive.
Okay.
And I have to tell you that everybody in the end, we had like 18 or 20 students on this call, and really everyone stayed until the end.
Okay.
And that's a good thing, because, if they're not interested, they leave.
They're gone. Right.
They're gone. It's a virtual call. They leave. Right. So I think not. I think you said things that were really important for them to hear.
Okay.
Some of it, I'm always appreciative, because some of it echoes what we try to tell them in the office. But, we're like, what do we know? Like if somebody from the outside world could also say, oh, you should do your research.
It really is. Yes.
And all that kind of stuff. That's always super helpful. So I just want to thank you again. You were wonderful.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I so appreciate it. I hope you had a good time doing it, because we all had a good time listening to you.
Perfect. All right. Well, you take care. You get some rest now too.
Take it easy, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Jerri. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.